sum it up the best I can. Clarissa Lafontaine was a woman trapped by the social constructs of her class and position.
Mr. Monroe, I presume?
Pleasure. My friends all call me Dick.
Mr. Monroe, I have a rather sensitive case I'd like to discuss with you. Are you sure this is the best place?
I'm sure they've got much worse stories than you, Mrs.
Mrs. LaFontaine. Well, this actually has something to do with Mr. LaFontaine, as the case may be.
Mr. LaFontaine. What trouble has your father-in-law gotten himself into?
No, of course I don't mean Father LaFontaine. I mean my husband, Charles.
So it's your husband you want me tailing?
Well, yes, if you must say it like that.
What seems to be the trouble at home, Mrs. LaFontaine?
Well, Charles, my husband that is, has been, well, his behavior. I don't want to presume.
Who do you think she is?
I'm sure I have no idea. I just get the general impression that, well, I would like to know if there is a she, I suppose.
Well, that should be easy enough. But I must ask for the integrity of the investigation. What exactly made you think that there was a she in the first place?
It all began this past summer, if I had to narrow it down. Charles and I had planned a rather lovely vacation to the Hamptons. He had just closed a big deal at work, and we were going to have the whole month together. Well, after about 2 weeks, I came down with the most dreadful illness. It must have been all the heat. Anyway, I distinctly remember packing my bags, and then I must have come home. I can't remember now.
Did your husband come home with you?
Of course he didn't. Couldn't be bothered. But I was back, or rather went back, at the end of the month. I must have been picking him up now that I think about it, and I knew there had been another woman there. A wife can sense these things, you know.
And you're sure you have no idea who it could be?
Absolutely not. I would have told you otherwise, and I resent the implication.
Well, sure. Sure. Is there anything else I should know?
These are some of the dates when my husband was without me. I suppose you'll want to start there. And I almost forgot. This is the number of his secretary at work. Lord knows she's never around to answer, but you may have some use of her. Oh my, look at the time. I have a dear friend coming by and I really must rush.
Mitch, how are you? Yeah, it's me, Dick. Yes, fine. Listen, do you know anything about a Charles LaFontaine down at the station? Yeah, the steel tycoon. Was in the papers a few weeks ago over some big merger. Well, you know, these yuppie types. All the same story. Yes, the wife. I swear, if he isn't double-timing her already, I look down on him more than his broad. Alright, well, let me know if anything crops up. Yes. Give my best to Doreen. Mrs. LaFontaine, I don't intend to take up much of your time, but I wanted to express my condolences. It must have come as quite a shock.
Well, don't just stand there out in this cold. What kind of host would that make me?
I wouldn't want to intrude. I'm sure you have family here with you.
Oh, I sent those freeloaders home just as soon as they got here. I've no stomach for tears. Never have. Do you?
Do I have a stomach for tears?
Well, that shouldn't matter now. I have a stomach for drinking. Let's have one, shall we? So what brings you here? Besides your condolences, that is.
Aren't my condolences enough for the occasion? I can see you might not need them. You seem to be handling it all rather well.
They tell me it's shock, and who am I to say otherwise? I'm wearing black, so that has to count for something. Anyway, I have your condolences now, sincere or otherwise, so don't let me keep you.
Well, my condolences weren't the only matter of business. I had some leads on your husband, but that seems all irrelevant now.
Oh well, I think as the widow I have full jurisdiction over that. Don't worry about upsetting me. I can be quite sensible when the moment calls for it.
Upsetting you has quickly become a non-issue for me, I think.
Good detective work. So what did you dig up on Charles?
I don't have my papers on me at the moment, but is there a time that works better for you later this week?
Friday should be fine. My social calendar has all but disappeared. It seems my friends have decided a bereaved widow isn't very in vogue.
Well, if you'll allow me the impertinence, I'd say they have horrid taste.
Mr. Monroe, what are you doing here?
Clarissa, I'm terribly sorry about this, but we need to talk.
Mr. Monroe, I hardly think this is the time or place to conduct this sort of a meeting.
Now, this will only take a moment. But I wanted to know why you lied to me about the dates you gave me the other day.
Well, I never, not in all my days. The nerve.
Now, Clarissa.
Mrs. LaFontaine.
Mrs. LaFontaine, the dates of these newspaper photos and the dates you gave me aren't matches. No, I don't mean to
Please excuse
insinuate...
me for a moment. Just a moment.
Now, Mrs. LaFontaine, about these photographs, I really...
Do you smoke cigars?
Do I smoke cigars?
Do you smoke cigars?
Mrs. LaFontaine, I don't see how this has anything to do with the photographs.
Oh, Mrs. LaFontaine sounds so stuffy, don't you think? Call me Kat. None of my friends do, but maybe it will catch on. Anyway, who said anything about photographs being remotely involved with cigars? I've never smoked myself, but I've always wanted to.
Mrs. LaFontaine, don't change the subject. Look at these. Nothing from your story checks out. I don't have time for whatever this is, but nearly every date you gave me places the two of you at some gala or clam bake. Are you trying to waste my time?
Waste your time? Mr. Monroe, in case your limited deductive reasoning skills have failed you, let me remind you that my husband's infidelities are no longer high on my list of concerns. I can just as easily and much more accurately say that your little charade of sleuthing is a waste of my time. You are on increasingly thin ice and you should not test it. A newspaper can run a photo anytime it wants. It raises interest, it breaks a dry news spell, it makes money. I get nothing out of my lies, so why would I tell them and why would I waste them on you?
Hello, could I speak to a Margaret Patricks, please? Might go by the name of Marnie. Oh, well, Marnie, I hate to bother you at work, but I had some questions concerning... Oh, I hadn't realized the time. No, of course, you must be about ready to call it a day. Listen, is there any other time you could... Tonight? Well, sure. All right, goodbye, Marnie.
Cherries, very fine. Same strawberry. Make your child. Something like lipstick. It's more of a permanent kind of
Vivian, the man is a pig, and if you don't call him back, I will.
It was great. It was warm.
It was a war.
Have you seen that room?
Hey, Bobby, let's have another one.
Oh! Which?
Come with me, Mary. This broad has a stuffed fish hanging on the living room wall, bigger than you.
Necessary. It's me, you, and Jefferson on the case. What are you going to do?
James, you wouldn't. If Thomas finds out, he'll turn your eyeballs into
I need
Vaseline.
the money! I need the money!
Fucking Vaseline, James!
I need the fucking money, okay?
You don't need the money as much as you need her.
That's not
Oh, Commodore. I didn't realize you were at port. Well, there's only one way to celebrate. With port.
Well, anyway, looked him in the eyes.
This is about him, isn't it?
Charles, you mean? Yes, this is about him.
Come back tomorrow. I'm too tight to talk about this right now. Scratches like a cat, you know?
What was that?
Come back tomorrow.
Go on and drink that.
What's in it?
Just think of it as the opposite of whatever you were pumping into your body last night. Now, Marnie, I want you to think very hard about your relationship with your boss, Mr. Lafontaine. Anything that seemed out of the ordinary, anything that seemed strange.
Think carefully? Oh, let me see if I can cast my memory so far back. As if I didn't see it every day already. As if this wasn't all to make me forget. What do you want to know? The liquor hasn't done a lick of good to help erase any of it anyway.
Marnie, what are you saying?
It was a Friday a few weeks back. Charles and I always would take a long lunch and get away from the office. We were in bed when we heard the heels in the hallway. The staff was never there on Fridays, so we knew it had to be Clarissa. I hid in the closet, but it still didn't explain why her husband was in bed on a Friday afternoon. She didn't seem to care, though. Walked over to the bed. Lord, it felt like forever. And then she was gone. I was so relieved, thinking the coast was clear, and before I knew it, she was back. I've never seen that look in a woman's eyes. And she was ripping at me, scratching like a cat. Charles pulled her off, but I must have gone into shock.
Hey, Mitch, I'm sorry about the hour, but this is urgent. What? Well, tell Doreen I'm sorry. This really is urgent. Listen, can I meet you at the station to go over the Lafontaine murder file? There's something I'm missing, I just know it. Yeah, the husband of the woman who hired me. Yes, that Lafontaine. Can I have the file or not? Niagara Falls? Damn it, Mitch, what are you messing around up there for? 15 years. No, I had no idea. I'll tell Doreen congratulations for me. When will you be back? I can meet any time. Assistant? No, that's perfect. Have her... What's her name? Patricia. Yes, Patricia. Have her meet me at Citibank. It's right up the street. I'll meet her there. Thanks, Mitch. Good night. Sorry, Doreen. Patricia, right?
It's Pat.
This can't possibly be all of it.
Well, I'm sure you've heard I'm very thorough. An eye for detail is what I have.
Look, there isn't a chance a form could have been misplaced. Left out? I know all of this already. A Smith & Wesson Model 22, wiped clean of all prints. 2 sets of bloody men's shoes, both size 11, and no eyewitness accounts of another man entering or leaving the property.
I don't think I like what you're insinuating. I'd swear by these files. Don't think I wouldn't.
You're sure there isn't anything you remember from that night?
Oh, sure I do. See, they've been training me to take on more responsibility, and at first I wasn't so sure, what with 2 kids at home and a husband working full-time. Darren, that's my husband. He said he wasn't quite sure about me working so much, but with Mama just down the street, it seemed silly not to.
Miss, I'm in an awful hurry.
It's Mrs. Anyways, what I was trying to say is that I handled quite a tricky maneuver that evening. See, with these new responsibilities comes reviewing files in the privacy of my own home, answering phones, directing dispatches, and the like. Well, this here was my first night training. Hectic as ever. Little Sarah must have colic, and Mother kept calling me over and over. I swear I've told her.
If this really is all, I have to go.
Well, now, cool those jets of yours. All I was trying to say is that I had to finagle just to the right officer in this area. See, everyone was busy on account of the murder. Anyways, just 3 blocks away, there was this woman having an hysterical fit.
What kind of hysterics?
She must have fallen. She was all covered in blood, writhing and screaming on the ground, just ripping at her ears.
Ripping at her ears, are you sure?
Now, do you think they would be giving me all this responsibility if I wasn't sure?
I have to go. Thank you, Mrs. Thank you. I know it's late, but listen. I need you to meet me at the La Fontaine house. It can't wait, and I don't have time to explain, but it needs to be tonight. Thank you. Wait here.
Mr. Monroe, what on earth are you doing here? I wasn't expecting you. Didn't even have the chance to powder my nose. Can I offer you a drink? Mr. Monroe, I will call the authorities. This is inappropriate and unprofessional, to say the very least. Who's there? What is that little throwaway of a tramp doing here? This is my house, no matter how many of the bedrooms you've been in. Get out. I'm sorry, but I really must ask the 2 of you to leave. I have a dear friend coming, and she'd be most unhappy to find... You little snake. We were enough for him. She really isn't expecting anyone else. My friend, that is. You must go before... I shot him in his own shoes. You know that quote, walk a mile in someone's shoes? It's poetic when you think about it. She's a dear friend. He had it coming. She wouldn't want strangers here. Him and that little harlot secretary of his. You didn't hear it from me, but she can get quite wild. Clarissa knows nothing, couldn't even hurt a goddamn fly. Did someone call the police? Mr. Monroe, what's going on? Marnie, what are you doing here? I'm sure I have no idea what's going on. You all have to go. I have a dear friend coming.
Clarissa LaFontaine was a woman trapped by the social constructs of her class and position. It would appear she mentally rounded up and projected those more animal instincts onto an alter ego named Cat. None of this alone is newsworthy, and if this were all, you and I wouldn't be here today. Cat seemed to understand the dual reality and didn't think much of demure little Mrs. LaFontaine. There was a stunted symbiosis between the two. It was upon discovering a second illicit affair Charles was having with his secretary Marnie, that it became too much for the two women, and the cat side truly took the reins, murdering her husband. In my professional opinion, Clarissa knew what the cat side was capable of, and hired this private detective fellow in order to reveal the origin of the crime she knew Cat was on the verge of committing. She must have had quite a lot of trust in his abilities because, if you excuse the flair for the dramatic, this was the delegation of her final battle.